You are listening to OEUVRE, otherwise known as Somethingography, the internet's funniest artist reflection podcast.
And now we are continuing with part 2 with our podcast about M. Night Shyamalan, where we discuss his latter career and the twists and turns it takes. Thank you for joining us and enjoy.
I grew growing up with Signs, and I saw it a few years ago again. I think it's such a quiet movie, which is something else about his movies. I mean, there are the rousing scores and stuff at times, but it is. I don't know. It feels like this weird, independent film about a pastor in crisis or something, and then now there's just these, and I think the aliens are relatively well done. Not even just design, but just how they're used in the story.
Yeah.
And maybe even what their meaning is. I remember seeing the crop circles the first time and being like, oh, this is I don't know, just it was very evocative. I think it's a great piece actually, if not, I think it's between this or The Village. And I do think Sixth Sense has great visual language, but I think I'm drawn more to these smaller stories, even though Sixth Sense is a small story. But maybe since those are both rural stories and I grew up in a rural area, I think maybe I'm connected to those ones more because their language speaks to me in a way that I recognize.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful movie. It's it's not a perfect movie, but it's a very powerful and visually just it's a great. I think, and it shares a lot of similarities with The Village, with kind of its themes, or maybe at least I feel like he goes through these spurts of visual language where kind of he makes one distinct piece and then the next one kind of is a companion to it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Unbreakable and Sixth Sense share that, where they're both these very dark bluish dark gray movies, and then these next two are these kind of they don't, maybe not the exact visual language, but at least this but
they're a lot warmer.
Yeah,
they definitely. Yeah, I see what you mean for sure.
Yeah, because the light in the basement is such a great scene. In not the Sixth Sense. Oh my god, Science. It's I don't know, that end is so meaningful to me. Again, it's kind of goofy, but when you see the alien in the living room and then he just goes for it. I don't know. It is this in a lot of movies that could be shot in such particular ways, and maybe if I watched it again I probably would be just picky about some of the shots, but just some of how it just frames everyone. I don't know, I guess since it's a family drama, and I guess Sixth Sense was too, and even Unbreakable in a way too.
They're very interesting family dramas. It's true. I haven't thought about it.
But I guess maybe since religion is at the forefront of sides, I guess growing up as a Catholic, I think anytime you see some sort of depiction of someone that's why The Exorcist is one of my favorite movies. But yeah, I think it's a great film. Do you have any lasting thoughts on Signs? Or
I like what you said about the way they integrate the aliens from a story perspective as well, because I sort of I mean, you can obviously read it as a alien invasion movie, but the aliens are sort of just a metaphor for me for any kind of great life upheavaling crisis. It's sort of an extension of the pastor. He's a pastor, right? I don't know why I'm asking this again. I should have remembered. But his wife passing away, it's sort of an extension of that. It's what if there was this great huge upheaval in your life? How do you respond in this time of great crisis? And I think they're pretty good about when to show the aliens and when not. It's very sparingly, partly because I guess they didn't. I don't know. They look all right when you see them, but it's a way better to just show them quite sparingly. And I don't know. It's a great film. It's a great film. Those are all my thoughts on Signs.
It's
I also like it because I grew up in the rural village, the tiny rural village of Toronto. We're the same.
Yeah, crop circles.
Yeah, there are crop circles everywhere. All around the CN Tower, it's just crop circles. It's bizarre.
It's almost like someone's cultivating something. I think. But let's get on with The Village, and we can either refer people to your podcast, and I would refer people to that.
Thank you.
To Is It Whack? The Village, or The Vil Whack. I don't know if it does have.
I don't know what we called the episode,
whack
but it was probably the Vil Whack. That sounds right. Yeah, we did a whole episode on it, so you can hear me and the team talk in more detail about it, but it's great. It's definitely one of my favorite Shyamalans. Like very specifically about kind of like you were saying, it is like sort of an extension of Signs, like a time of great crisis, this time of grief, and like how all these characters choose to respond to that. That's sort of the third act twist, is like it's revealed that they all, spoiler alert, I guess spoiler alert for all the films, I don't know. Just watch them, but we can still, whatever. Unless you don't want me to spoil it, then I don't have to.
No, spoil it. It's fine. It's a 16-year-old movie.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I think the spoiler alert warnings are it's a good gag at the very least.
But yeah, that all these characters came here like out of a shared sense of grief, and this is sort of their way of like responding to that like moment of internal crisis, which puts it in line with, I'd say, like basically all the films to this point. They're like, how do you like externally respond to like great internal crisis? And I think it's really, really good.
Yeah.
I'm sad that it was sort of the first one that... I know some people didn't love Signs, and even Unbreakable, like I think people were comparing to Sixth Sense, or just like had really, really high expectations, and maybe it wasn't as well received, those two. But The Village was the first time that I think people were like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Shyamalan sucks. And it's weird when I watch... Like, I understand thinking that for Lady in the Water, even though I like it. I think it is like... an odd and quite idiosyncratic film that, like, certainly I understand it not appealing. But The Village isn't super different from, like, the other Shyamalan films up to that point. I don't really know why everyone didn't like this one. I guess I could look more into it, but it's bizarre to me. I don't know. Do you feel the same way, or do you kind of get it?
I think I get it, because I think maybe the twist is just kind of... And I don't really see it as a twist, even though, like, in the context of his career, like, if any other director did a movie like this, they'd just be like, oh, that was the ending. I guess there's a twist ending. But I guess since he made his name off of a twist ending, he's always going to be the twist guy, even when he doesn't do a twist.
Yeah.
But anyways, I can see why. I don't really agree with it. This one's very quiet, very much like Signs, both, like, not because, but it's interesting because I don't think people acknowledge how quiet his movies are, which is what's funny about when we get to The Happening, because The Happening is a Shyamalan movie for all good, and we can get into maybe why it is the way it is, but yeah, The Village, a great movie.
No, I get that. I mean, it's a twist that, like, or quote-unquote twist that's sort of, like, you could see it as it's sort of undermining the rest of the film, because it kind of, like, upheaves, like, everything we thought we knew about the village itself. But that's sort of what I love about it. It becomes way more, like, meaningful and impactful to me. But I would understand if you're kind of like, oh, I was into this, like, period piece village film, and now it's not that at all. What the hell?
Yeah, and I also think maybe just, like, The Highway, like, I think the reveal of it would have been one thing if it's, like, something super modern day, or, like,
right.
I wonder what it'd be if it was, like, sci-fi, where, like, a robot, like, walked up or something.
That'd be pretty cool.
I think it would be mocked even more, but
yeah.
But I think maybe just it's like, what? Like, I think that's what's funny about his movies is he's so good at building tension, but sometimes when he releases, the purpose in his story is to just show that it's an everyday situation, or maybe not everyday, but, like, it's not out of the ordinary. And I think that's what's hard about his films, is that that's not like audiences don't respond well to that. You know,
True.
I think they want like it to be this grand story, and when his stories are like these folk stories, which is this one literally is like mimicking like a folk story, and that's when we get into the next one is like it literally is a folk like lore piece, you know. And I think it continues because I think there's a lot of his movies that are just like After Earth to me. Well, we'll get to it.
That I have a question for you, kind of based off.
Yeah.
That just made me think of this. Like, do you think that like people at this point were like going into his films thinking, and maybe this is even why some people didn't love Unbreakable or Signs, thinking like Shyamalan is the horror guy. This has to be scary. This has to be a horror film. This has to be like this thing that I expect it to be. Do you think that like played any kind of role, or even still does? Because even when you watch The Sixth Sense, it's like it's not really like scary. Like it's not even really a horror film. Like it's like a thriller, I guess, but it's more like just like a drama. But I feel like his name got so attached with horror in the same way of like I don't know, like Hitchcock or like Carpenter or something, and it's like I get that happens from like a branding perspective, but it maybe is skewing the way that people are entering his films, because he hasn't even, I don't think any of his films are really like a horror film except maybe The Visit.
Yeah. I do think there's horror elements in it, like you say, but I guess that's the thing is like, again, I think audiences and people at large, critics, which is I think that's what's funny about it. But anyways, is I think as humans we are very binary, and we want to like classify and define everything by as easy as possible. So I think that's why like he probably got it, is because he had like the presentation of the dead people in Sixth Sense is kind of like unnerving.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the way this alien is treated in Signs is very unnerving. And then this movie, I love The Village because the whole set and production design is amazing, but the design specifically of the monsters, like, I think it's the best he gets with doing like that horror element. And I think also that's maybe what I feel like that's why that ending doesn't work for people, is because it deflates the story as opposed to a good twist like uplifts the story. And with this, it's almost like this thing is like, oh, okay. I guess maybe the way also it was depicted, it could have been different. I really don't know. I feel like if I was writing it, I'd just write a hopeless ending and have her just get lost in the forest, like how everyone thought she was going to get lost.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. But like the thing is, he loves endings, and he doesn't want to leave. It's funny. He likes leaving untied endings, but in a way where he gets to tie it up a little bit. Yeah. So I think that's what happened with this one, is that he because Lady in the Water, I feel like that happens too, even though its ending is great and powerful, but I feel like he's so tidy sometimes with how he likes to construct his stories that I think maybe that I feel like it takes all the air out of this movie and whatever he built up with it.
I think that's also like just a problem with some thrillers and horror films in general, where it's like it's a lot. Did you watch Squid Game? A lot of people watched Squid Game.
I haven't. I'm really interested though, because I think it seems like such a cool and specific and like deliberate piece of art, but I just haven't found the time yet.
I think it's great, and I think like I would say like 90% of it is like really, really good. I just found like, and I don't think this is exclusive only to Squid Game, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but just that I felt like things are usually scarier and tenser and more interesting when you don't feel like when it doesn't feel like it needs to sort of explain away everything, like where it doesn't feel like but I think it's like a fear of sort of being penetrable. Like you want the work to be like unpenetrable, so people can't like kind of critique it from maybe logic perspective, or from like, oh well, they didn't answer this and this and this, and it's like I usually don't want everything to be answered. Did you see Hereditary? Have you seen Hereditary? Yeah. Which I think is great. Yeah. And I think like 95% of it's amazing. And then the last 5 minutes, it has to explain away everything. And it's kind of like, I mean, it's scarier when you don't have to explain everything. It's more interesting. It's more tense. It's like, and I definitely agree in some of the Shyamalans. I can 100% see that, where it's like wanting to wrap a tidy bow on it a little bit. But it's like, operating more in that hazy kind of like, oh, I'm still leaving with like wonders and questions, but I'm so but I love the metaphor, or I love the like symbol, or like I was so unnerved. It's like that usually impacts me just me personally, but I don't think I'm the only one. Like, impacts me way more than like, we got to wrap a bow on it, we got to explain everything, we got to make sure every loose end is tied up. But maybe it's just my taste.
Yeah, no, I think it's a taste thing. I do think, since he's working on such, like you say, a populist, or like as a populist, I feel like he knew a lot of people were going to go see this movie, so I think he's like, I can't just let them like hang there, which is like, like, it's like, no, you can, you don't need to do it. But and also I think also it's the folklore tale of it all, of like, folklores don't end on a cliffhanger or like unexplained endings. It like, unless if you're like writing some Lovecraft shit, it leaves with like, oh no, and then this happens, and that's the end.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference with this, is that I think he builds up this like really intense and palpable atmosphere, and then it's like, oh no, but they're just right by a road.
Yeah,
or something.
No, I agree with that.
I think
I just
think
like
the way
the
it's done is
explanation. That's what I just like, the explanation in the village. So I mean, like, I didn't see it as a problem in the village, because I find it so interesting thematically. But I would say in some, but I see that point for sure, because it is a point that like I would agree with a lot of thrillers or horrors in general. It's just, this one particularly, I think I like the explanation, so I don't mind.
I agree. I think the funny thing about it too is also like audiences. I think once like public perception changes on you, again, it's like what we were talking about. I think, like, in the context of this movie, and same with Lady in the Water, I think it all works more or less. Like it all functions as a story that's working towards something. But I think it's easy for audiences, I don't know, to have some sort of expectation on how a story should go and how it should be done. And when you like subvert that or do something that even in context it makes sense or works, it's easy just to be like, that was dumb. Like, if you just didn't like, it's like, I think the Sopranos ending is like one of the best endings of all time, and there's a lot of people who like are very like dissatisfied with it, and that's understandable. But like, I don't know, I don't know. I think that's the thing about Shyamalan, is that his public perception soured and twisted so fast that I think it's just like, again, it's like he was a punching bag. So it's like, I think he's one of the few artists that public perception like changed how people engaged with him. Like, nowadays most artists don't have to just like have that conversation or like have to worry about that, because if you get big enough, you have your supporters, and then you don't have your supporters, and you can still manage to make a career off of that. But like, he doesn't really have that with like, he was still at the behest of the audience, even though he didn't need to be, but he felt he was at the behest of.
And expectations are always kind of like a curse. Like, I think that it's very true what you said, that like, if you're engaging with some art and it like doesn't appeal to or doesn't line up with your expectations, it's easy to just like dismiss or like just kind of be like, oh well, that like you said, wow, well, that's stupid, like I don't like that, rather than to kind of like take the time and think like, okay, well, that didn't line up with my expectations, but like, what were they going for and why did they do that? And I don't fault anyone for, like, especially people who you maybe engage with art on like a lot more casually, don't really want to think about it that much. So I totally understand why it's just like, it doesn't line up to expectations. All right, I don't like it. Like, that's fine. It's just sort of unfortunate, and as a creator, it's like, I can understand it being frustrating, because it's sort of like, I want people to like want to understand, and I want people to like want to try and to like want to figure out why I made the decisions that I made. But a lot of people just want to have like the quick kind of impact, or not necessarily want to, but a lot of people just have the like sort of quick response, and then that's the end. That's the response, and you don't really think about it beyond that, and that's fine. That's understandable. It's just unfortunate because that will like shape people's opinions on films like The Village, where like if it didn't line up to your expectation, rather than kind of think like, oh, but actually, why did they do this? And then it's easier to just be like, yeah, so that means it sucks. And maybe you can, and you can also think about it and think about what the reason was, and then decide I don't like that. That's also cool. Like, I'm not saying that people who don't like The Village only weren't thinking about it. But anyway.
Yeah. No. I think you can like something, but I think it's very easy. He had popular films. And he unfortunately got saddled with, from both, I think, a racial aspect, and also just that he writes stories in this particular way as like that. It's like, oh yeah, we can pick on him. It's like, imagine if like, you can equally do something to Tarantino the same way where like you can make a parody of a Tarantino film where like blood's squirting everywhere and people are cracking pop culture jokes and shit like that, and it's easy. It's just as easy to mock that as it is Shyamalan, but Tarantino is not sincere or earnest in the same degree that Shyamalan is, and he's also a white dude, and he's also the cool guy. So I think it's but like any director,
so people are way more willing to like engage with him, and also to engage with his like egotistical stuff, like because he's a white guy who makes these like violent, cynical films. It's frustrating, but I think people did bring that to Shyamalan, and people did like were ready to tear him down, and it was sort of like, if these films aren't amazing, if they aren't like perfect, if they don't blow our mind, then this guy sucks and he's the worst. Like that's his career, unfortunately. Like that's the way that people thought about him.
Yeah, which I think brings us, now that we're like, about the critical discourse, is I think it brings us to the most direct address to the critics in Lady in the Water.
Yeah,
I love that scene. That scene was beautiful. It was
that's what he says.
It's just such a beautiful joke because it was so self-aware. It was like something out of a complete, like, I don't think I've ever seen him get that self-aware, and maybe he has, just I never picked up on it. But he's like, in the third act, something about this side character who everyone finds annoying narrowly misses death, and then it's like, no. And the way it's shot is so weird. It's like all of a sudden it's like from here, and then it's like this crazy close up. It's like, ah! And he's just like he falls. And it's pretty funny. Like, it's a joke. I don't even think it's like even if you were like that was a serious like call out to critics. He was calling them out. It's not, though. It's a joke. Like, he probably was expressing some sort of frustration potentially with a critic, but at the very least, it was just a joke. So
I think if he was a director that people really liked, if he was Tarantino, if he was a white director, probably people would be more willing to like be on his side and be like, oh yeah, it's cool that he's making this film where like he's a writer who saves the world with his writing, and and people like and he kills this critic. Like, it's funny, it's fun, but people already didn't like Shyamalan, so it was kind of like, oh, look at this asshole doing that,
Yeah, I feel like I heard about that in like film circles more than I ever heard about the actual like quality of that film, which is this very quiet. Again, I keep calling them quiet, but they're quiet. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie and being intrigued. I thought she was going to be a mermaid. I guess she's not. She's like some sort of water creature thing. But
yeah, what do they call her? It's like they should have just that's what it is, right? And water.
I think so.
Or narf.
Narf.
Yeah, they say narf,
which is even worse.
Which they talk about in the book. It's just like, it's already like confusing and sort of like a difficult fairy tale for people to like kind of understand, and then you're also throwing in these words that people don't understand, and the movie starts off with like this huge like lore thing where it's just like, oh, this is such an unengaging way to start a movie.
Which is not surprising that he did get chose to direct Avatar, because Avatar literally opens with a similar type of aspect. But yeah, I think Lady in the Water, I think this is his midpoint. This is where it all falls. Because, like you say, he still had some quality attached to his name with both The Village and The Signs, even if there were detractors. But I think this one is where... Yeah, I think for a lot of reasons, I think this is even more of a smaller story than these other ones, because at least with these other ones, there are these like universal questions that people are dealing with. Maybe not so much with The Village. Community shows up in this movie. It's an isolated man who's, you find out, lost a lot in his life. Mm-hmm. Very similar almost to the wife in The Sixth Sense, where she lost everything. And there's a self-actualization plot line, like Unbreakable, where he realizes he can contribute and be a part of this world, and he is of value. I think that there's probably some apt criticisms about how Bryce Dallas Howard, Story, I think is her name, is treated in the film. But I don't know. I think it's an incredibly beautiful piece. It's kind of goofy. Some of it's kind of shot very weird. A lot of it's like handheld in ways that doesn't actually, like, he's such a precise director that this one actually feels very clumsy. There's very beautiful color to the film, I actually think, but some of the action stuff, I don't know if they were shooting on a set or what, but like the way the monster in the forest, that little dog thing is treated, and the other stuff, I think kind of doesn't all add up. Yeah. I mean, it adds up. It adds up, but...
No, yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. I was just saying the filmmaking. I think the filmmaking... I think it's weird in this one. It doesn't feel like a Shyamalan movie in some sense.
Yeah,
it feels like a...
Oh, I interrupted you again. I was just excited.
No, you're good. Just go ahead. You got it.
It's far less, like, precise, I would say, than, like, his 4 films that were leading up to that, and... They talk about this in the book a lot. Like, there was a lot of dispute between him and the cinematographer, Christopher Doyle, who shot, like, a bunch of Wong Kar-wai's films. In the Mood for Love, I believe. Wait, let me check. Yeah, Chungking Express, Happy Together, 2046. And so they just had very different ways of working. And Christopher Doyle... at least across the book, which seemed fairly biased, but he seemed like kind of an asshole who made things very difficult for Shyamalan and for the whole crew, really. But I would say it still looks quite beautiful. Like, it definitely feels like it looks less precise than, like, say Signs or Unbreakable, which are like so just perfectly crafted, whether you like those films or not. Every shot is so, like, perfectly crafted. This one, it feels a little more like just shooting shit. But it looks great. Like, it looks really great.
I mean, there's something appealing about it because it does feel very DIY, like independent for some reason. Yeah. Even though I know it's like a $20 million budget film, or even more than that. I want to double check that because it costed a lot, even though it didn't. No, it was $70 million, which I did not know where that money went, unless if they built the whole.
Yeah, I think they had to build the whole complex. Built the motel.
Wow. Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Still, it does not look like that. Like, you could have given Todd Solondz, what's his name from Happiness, like $15 million, and he could have made that movie.
Yeah.
In the same way, but. I guess the actors, I don't know, but whatever.
It's not even like a cast of like that. Like no one's like a huge star in this. I don't know why it costed $70 million. That's wild. It just sucks that this is like, whether you like. I mean, and most people don't like it. I had my whole spiel about it, which I think makes it very interesting to me. But I wouldn't claim it to be like a incredible film, a perfect film, or anything. But I think it's ridiculous that it shows up on lists of like the worst films ever, or that people talk about it like it's one of the like worst films ever made. It's like he's made, in my opinion, he's directed 3 films that are worse than this. And I mean, I would put this high up, but I think even consensus wise, like, I don't know, it's wild to think that this is like, people would say this is one of the worst films. It's fine. It's a fine movie, even if you don't love it like I do. It's like, come on, it's not that bad.
No, I agree. I was pleasantly surprised. I actually thought it was going to be more like Shape of Water, like, where it actually was more like a folk story, like the telling of it. But in some sense, I kind of liked that it was this kind of like, I don't know, dude. It almost reminded me of like the comedies being made around that time. Like, I could just see Will Ferrell being in this movie as Paul Giamatti, and being more like a funny movie. Yeah. Because like, this feels like there's like very big gags in here of like the guy with the one arm that's bigger than his other arm. There's like all those guys who just hang out. I think it would be pot if it wasn't Shyamalan, but since it's Shyamalan, it's just all these 5 guys who hang out in a room and just smoke cigarettes, which is like not something people do. Like, they're not even drinking. It's just they're just like, which is such a weird, like, that's like, you're like, okay, he's like a kid. He doesn't acknowledge that like pot exists, or like alcohol, like people party. It's like, no, they smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, no, that's
like, if he had the option, they'd be like eating candy cigarettes, I bet you, and he'd be like, that's what adults do. They hang out in a room and eat candy. But anyways, it's like a broad comedy, most of it. And then there's these very sincere and sweet moments between the community at large, like both Shyamalan and his sister. I really liked that like relationship. Yeah, and like, like, I don't know, it was very grounded. It did feel like an indie comedy, like. Kevin Smith could have made this movie. It would have been way more raunchy. But, like, it is very, like, this, like... Compared to his other ones that are very high conceptual and people dealing with really intense emotions. And Giamatti's dealing with really intense stuff. And I think some of the other people around them are.
Yeah, I think Giamatti's pretty good in this.
Oh, he's incredible. That Studher is... he embodies that character really well. It's a fascinating movie, and it's actually, I think, like, I see why someone wouldn't like it, and maybe if I wasn't watching this for this in context of putting him all together, I probably might be like, oh, that movie was, I probably would even shrug more. Yeah. But in the context of him, I do think it's a cool movie. I don't know, I like it.
Yeah, I agree. And I have one last thing to say about it. As I was saying, I think you can sort of read the film as like his dream that he'll like write this thing and then everyone's gonna, band together around it and make this great thing and yada yada. And he plays a writer, and in it, he's writing a book that's like supposed to save the world. And there's this great line when he's asked to describe the book, where he says like. Well, I wrote it down somewhere. He says... he describes the book as, it's just my thoughts on all the cultural problems, and, like, thoughts on leaders and stuff. And he says it, he's, like, sounds so pained, like, it sounds like him trying to describe Lady in the Water. Or just... I think it's so good. It's so funny. It's my thoughts on all the cultural problems and like thoughts on leaders and stuff. Like, that could be anything. What are you talking about? So good. So good.
I mean, it would be funny if he was like a lot younger and like he was supposed to be in college or something. And, like,
no, he's like a full-grown man, and this is like his book that's gonna save the world.
No, I know, but it's just like, in some sense, like, that would still be a like, it'd be like a nice winky nod to being like, yeah, young people are always about changing the world and doing cool things. And it's like, no, this is made by like a 35-year-old man who's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like stuff. It's like, I'm trying to and
stuff, leaders and stuff. I don't know. Anyway, good movie.
If that line doesn't show you it's a good movie, I don't know what would.
Then it was The Happening, right? You said you liked that. You like The Happening, or you're interested?
I do like
in
The Happening. I think it literally is just a Shyamalan movie. It has the same premise. It's just, I don't know what happened. Something when he was baking it went wrong, and we got Mark Wahlberg delivering the driest lines of all time.
Yeah,
and I don't even
so
think I don't think it's Shyamalan's fault or Mark Wahlberg's fault. I don't know what happened there, but there's I don't know. I don't know, but it's almost so baffling made that it. I remember one time I read a review for Nicholas Winding Refn's Only God Forgives, the follow up to Drive, and someone said, "Oh, if Lynch would have taken this to Cannes, he would have like gone a standing ovation and some other stuff." And I feel like this movie is like, yeah, if David Lynch made this movie, people would be like, this movie is dope. And it's like,
yeah, I think that does go back to the expectations thing. I think there's just like artists where people just are far more willing to like engage with it or understand it, and then there's artists where people are just like, oh no, I already think this is going to be bad, so it has to like blow my mind in order for me to even think it's like okay. But with that being said, I don't really like The Happening. It's one that I saw 2 years ago and don't remember a lot of, but I remember being like just really bored, I guess. I don't know. That's the worst critique. I don't want to just say I'm bored and that's like my critique of the movie. I just think like it's trying to be like a B movie. It doesn't feel, I don't know. I think Old succeeds far more at that. Which I'm not the first person who said that. I've heard other people say like Old is him like following up on the promise of like trying to make a B movie with The Happening, and then he finally sort of succeeded with Old. But I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about The Happening, but if you have more to say, I'd love to hear it.
I don't know if I have a lot to say. Don't bees save the movie? Isn't that
true? It's like a B movie. Holy shit. True.
I think, again, my love of Lifetime movies, I think these line deliveries keep me engaged with the movie, because half the time you're like, I don't know what people are doing here, but they are delivering these lines with like either a lot of emotion or like none at all, and it's like very, I don't know, it's so baffling. I find baffling, it's like, I wouldn't compare it to The Room per se, but it's almost that level of just like baffling filmmaking where you're like, what? You're like, what? Like, I don't know. It's like, you guys need to like redo this scene, like do another take, because I don't know, unless if you guys are like, and maybe it's supposed to be like a 50s B movie where they're like, whoa,
I think it is.
Like,
I think that's like supposed to be the vibe.
But and I think, and this is me failing my own context of Shyamalan. You know, I was talking so much about in the beginning about, you know, you had to take him in context, that even me, maybe, I don't know, whatever. I don't know. But it's fun. I would say if you like to watch.
Sorry.
What's that?
I keep interrupting.
I think the
you.
premise is
so
good.
Sorry.
It's scary. You're good. I think the premise is good and it's scary, kind of.
Yeah.
Even though it's kind of silly, but and the way it kind of reminds me of War of the Worlds, except like way more low key. Which this film probably was made for like half the budget of War of the Worlds, or like a third.
Yeah.
And it still was like probably $60 million. And I don't get what that went to, because it literally is just people driving around in cars, getting out, talking. Have you ever seen Birdemic? It's like this like weird bad
I've heard
B
of it,
movie.
But, yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's awful. This movie felt like a companion to that. I would say you should watch this and Birdemic in the same night, or maybe at the same time, and just see what that experience is like, because they're both very slow and bad line deliveries and like weird framing, and I don't know, but
I think it is also interesting that he directed this film after directing Lady in the Water, because it feels like such a like sharp turn. It's almost like, oh, this like, you know, family film that I was trying to make, this like fairy tale, this very sweet family film, didn't appeal. People didn't like it. It didn't work. It got, you know, hated, ripped apart. So let me just do the opposite thing. Let me make like an R-rated film for the first time. Let me like make something that's like, you know, trying to be, I guess, scarier than anything he'd done before. It was a real like when I was saying that The Visit is the only one that's like really a horror movie all the way through, I'd say The Happening is certainly like trying to be a horror movie. So it's interesting that he made it like right, or that he, that this came right after Lady in the Water. And it sort of goes along with what we were saying of like, wanting to have this mass appeal, wanting people to like him, wanting people to like his work. If you only look at the films, it kind of makes sense. Like, oh, this thing didn't work, let me do the opposite thing and maybe that'll work. Then that also didn't work, so then it's like, whoa, shit, what do I do now? Now I adapt one of the greatest TV shows ever, and that also sucks.
Have you seen it recently?
Not recently. Not, I saw it when I went through all his films a couple years ago. But
what were your thoughts about like filmmaking wise? Do you see any of him in it?
No, that's the thing that sucks about it. Like I just, even The Happening and I think After Earth, you can see the Shyamalan in them, even though I think those films aren't good. Avatar or The Last Airbender, I remember just getting very little. I think the bending is cool. That's pretty much the only thing that I think is cool. But other than that, like, it just feels so anonymous. Like, it feels like anyone could have made that.
Yeah.
Which
I agree. Yeah, it does feel very much like a studio for hire job.
Yeah.
Like, he still has some weight on his name. What's the sad thing is, I think whatever weight he did have on his name, which maybe he was just desperate, and he's like, I don't really, like, I'm going to lose my name either way. I think he, like, completely lost it with this.
Yeah.
I think the Happening was mocked, but it was here and gone, and it didn't become this giant punching bag.
Yeah.
After a whole lot of issues, even since its inception, and and he ended up directing it. So
I wonder if that's in the vein of, well, it's like what we were just saying, like, okay, this family film didn't work, so I can't do that. Okay, this like horror film didn't work, so I can't do that. Okay, what if I adapt, like, for the first time, like, adapt a beloved, like, thing, like, what if I adapt something people already love? Maybe that'll be like a quicker path to kind of like getting back out there. People like something, yada yada. It feels like someone who's sort of like, what will kind of restore like public perception of my work, but instead it's just the complete opposite.
Which is funny, because then when we get into After Earth, it's another studio for hire job.
Yeah.
And it's even, my thought about the one saving grace that I like about After Earth is, I haven't seen it. I think it on TV a few times, but I saw it in theaters when I was like, whenever it came out. So I was like 16. Yeah. No. I was like 17. Anyways, it's a fable. That's, I think, the best thing I could give it.
Yeah.
I think the monster's kind of cool. I like that you have to be quiet around the monster and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's a sweet story about a dad and son in conflict and them trying to come together. And it shares a lot. I think, actually, this one, since Avatar, there's so anonymous, I feel like this one you do get a lot of Shyamalan thematic elements in it.
I'd agree with that.
But it's all covered up in, like, with CGI, and it's not a bad story. It's not a great story, but it's too slow for its own sake, and it doesn't... It has heart in it, and I don't think Jaden's as bad as people say he is in it.
Yeah, Jaden's fine.
Yeah, I think it doesn't work. It's either is rushed or... What's that?
Talk about, like, someone else who I think, like, people were just ready to, like, hate whatever Jaden did.
Oh, for sure.
Like, it was, like, a terrible combination. It's a Shyamalan film, and also, like, the structure of the film is, like, Will Smith saying, like, Jaden is the next star, like, love Jaden. And so I think, like, people already were, like, ready to hate Jaden. I think that's sort of gone away now, I would say. It took a while. I think people like Jaden now, for the most part. But yeah, I think certainly at the time, it's like people were ready to, like, hate anything that they did. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think it just when it was in a good pairing. I also think the story just It's not a good story. It's not
No.
bad. It's fine.
No.
It would be a cool kids book, but it's not. I think as a kid it was inspiring in some sense because I'm a very conceptual person where you just throw characters into an environment and have them exist.
Yeah.
And I think there's some really cool and like decent moments in it, but then also it's a studio movie that just it's like an independent studio movie, which is I think a lot of what Shyamalan does, but this one is the most studio-like, so it makes it even look weirder. Like to see an independent movie, like it's like if you made 2001: A Space Odyssey like nowadays, and I'm not comparing completely to that, but like something that's like very abstract and very quiet to like what this movie was. And yeah, like if you try to do that to 2001, yeah, that movie would suck.
Yeah.
Like any material would suck if you tried to like, I don't know, whatever. But it's whatever. It's a movie. He bounces back though, which is I think that's when we get into some fun stuff because
yes, the comeback. This is what makes his career so good. It would be such a bummer if it was like huge expectations, or made this amazing film. Now everyone has this huge expectations. People calling him the next Spielberg. It doesn't work out. He's got a couple flops in a row that are pretty bad. Everyone turns on him. That would be such a sad end to the story. But instead, he did the thing that he's trying to get all the characters in all of his movies to do. Or that's a crisis in so many of his movies, his internal crisis, to believe in yourself, to fight your fear, to fight your insecurity, to be like, no, I can do this. I can come back, and I believe in myself, and I can make something, and I'm down, but I'm not out. And then he mirrored that in his career, which is so sick. He came back, he financed the visit on his own. He was like, I just got to go back to doing something small. Go back to something that I know. Don't be worried about like how people are gonna perceive me. Just make something that will be fun, that I'll enjoy doing. And it was this great, like very small budget found footage film. That's awesome. It's good. It's good. He's back. He came back. He did it. He pulled off the thing you wanted all his characters to pull off. He pulled it off in real life in his career. You love to see it. All his films are about a crisis of faith in oneself, and I don't know what he was like on his own outside of the films, but at least there was a crisis of faith in his career public self, and he turned it around. I love it.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of the actual like the film itself? Do you have any thoughts about how it fits in?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not one of my favorite Shyamalans, but it's like a solid it's a solid night at the movies. It's another one I didn't rewatch, so I'm trying to sort of remember like some of my takes when I watched it. But I don't know. Maybe if you tell me what you think, and I'll just say the same thing in different words.
Well, what's funny enough is I'm aware of how it ends and stuff, but I actually haven't seen it before. I have some parts and clips, but I do like that you were saying before that he does reactions to stuff like to his own work. He like kind of like responds to his own work.
Yeah.
And I think with this one, typically the family is the stronghold and the something that whatever.
Yeah.
That he wants people to work as a family together or community. And this one very actively is the complete opposite of that. And I find that very interesting thematically,
Yeah, that's true.
And there's, I don't know, it's something. So I've seen clips and it seemed like a typical found footage movie. I know there's a little bit more character building and writing, and I think that's kind of cool because I do think he's an underrated, like, he knows how to write a character. Whether or not it's a good character or like it's good dialogue, I think is up to debate. But at the very least, he knows how to write compelling situations and stuff. So, interesting. I don't know. But that's all I can say about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. It's definitely not... I mean, it's not one that I think about very often, as evidenced by the fact that I cannot even remember that much about it. That's probably one that I should have rewatched in anticipation, because I really don't remember much about it. But I remember thinking it was pretty good, and, it was after, 3 films in a row that I think are quite bad. So it was just nice to see like a solid film that was successful. I was happy for Shyamalan because he seems like a good guy, and I want him to be happy.
Can you guess how much it made, or how much it was made for, and how much it made?
It's like $5 million it was made for. Is that
yeah?
And then I'm gonna guess it made like 80.
Oh, not far off. 18 million more. So yeah, 98.
98. Wow, that's really impressive.
Which is a great success. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Which is funny because
impressive.
I feel like around that time, found footage was already getting derided. So it's funny that a man who was constantly derided, like people were derisive of everything he's done, made a film in a genre that was already being true. Like and succeeded. Like if anything, that's even more something to be kind of like, oh shit. Like
if I remember correctly, he wasn't really like, you know, all of his films up to that point were like an M. Night Shyamalan film. They're really advertising the Shyamalan of it. I remember it being a lot more discreet with The Visit. Like I remember people seeing it, and I worked at a movie theater at the time, and I remember people like coming out of it, and my coworkers, and being like, you know, they'd be like, that was actually really good. And I didn't even realize that Shyamalan directed it, like until the end, or maybe, you know, until they watched it. I don't know, but I remember that being sort of the react. And this is completely anecdotal, but I feel like that was sort of the reaction, and that it was like his involvement was a lot less highlighted in the advertising for it, which was probably a conscious choice. So, yeah, no, maybe people didn't enter it. It's kind of what we were saying. Maybe people didn't enter it with the same expectations. They were just entering on its own terms, and then it was able to succeed. And I don't know if any of the, like, other than The Village and Lady in the Water, I don't know if any of those films would have been successful if people even didn't enter it with Shyamalan in mind and what people's preconceived ideas of Shyamalan and his films were. But it didn't help. It didn't help that people already had such low expectations of him. So I think it probably did help The Visit that, like, that wasn't a crucial, or that people didn't really expect it to be a Shyamalan film going in. I don't know. That's all anecdotal, though, so I can't really, like, I can't speak to it, how it made $98 million. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's truth to that, though. And I also think maybe the fact that it was such a small thing, the expectations were even less so. So I think people were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, also what happens when we get to Split.
Yeah.
Because Split is full-blown studio-ish, even though I think he did fund a lot of it. Like, he's in his element of his early 2000s, I feel like. I feel like Lassie does great work in, but I feel like Split is his, like, populist filmmaking tendencies actually succeeding the way they did back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, it feels very much Sixth Sense, where, like, it didn't really get panned, and even when it did, like, the criticisms were, you know, criticisms of ableism and treatment of you know, the depiction. But I think it's I think beyond that, it was a success. Like, people were not even just pleasantly surprised. They were like, they thought it was a fucking good movie. Yeah. It was a great movie. And that's not easy to do, you know?
Yeah, it's quite a unique film. It's not, that's probably the only one that, like, people generally think it's really solid, and I don't really like it. Like, I do think it's very ableist. And also it's like there's also just it's so dark to me. Like, even it's like the problem with Unbreakable in the end, but it's like the whole thing, and it just makes it no fun. And I know that's like you know, it's kind of supposed to be a horror movie, and a lot of horror movies traffic in that territory. Like, all the sexual abuse stuff is just so hard to watch. I don't know. I just don't enjoy watching it. It's not the kind of Shyamalan that I enjoy, but I'm happy that it was successful, and it is a unique film, and, you know, McAvoy is locked in. It's pretty ableist, but he's locked in.
Yeah, I think all of what you said it is all true. It is a really upsetting movie. I remember, and I think that's what worked as it for a trailer, but I didn't realize, I guess since he does character studies, how deep it was just going to go for that. But that like trailer is such a good trailer because it's like he gets in the car and he locks it, and like that's all it is, and it's like, yeah, who doesn't want to like? No, who doesn't? I mean, there's plenty of people who probably don't want to see that movie, but like, it's such a visceral experience that it's almost hard not to just like be like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah,
and then everything you think happens, and it's upsetting and it's not fun, but.
But I don't think it's bad. Like, I don't mean to say that, like, I think it's just sort of not my taste. But I don't think it's bad. I think it's successful at being the movie that it's trying to be. I just don't really enjoy watching it. But that's fine. Not for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, this one feels like very... It's funny, I feel like... someone can make the criticism or the point that, like, he never wanted to be a B-movie filmmaker, but when he actually embraced his B-movie tendencies, he actually made, like, The Visit and this both, I think, are just B-movies.
Yeah, no, that's true.
The way when he embraces them, he can make something that's compelling and also have his character studies in it, even though it's kind of schlocky and campy and problematic. But I don't know. It's he made it. And he follows it up with another,
and the twist is pretty cool. Like, I mean, it being a sequel to, well, it's not really a twist, like it's just sort of a reveal, but it being a sequel to Unbreakable is pretty sweet.
Yeah, when Shyamalan gets self-aware, it's fun because it's like, instead of a twist, it's not a twist, it's a twist.
Yeah.
But it's not a twist. It's more of a reveal.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we go directly into Glass, which is a movie.
I went to rewatch Glass for this. That was one I really wanted to rewatch because I really liked it when I saw it. Maybe because I think it like does pick up on those core themes of the earlier Shyamalan films. Just like, finding belief in yourself, finding faith in yourself. Everyone's telling you like, no, you're not super. You're not a superhero. Like, you're just delusional and yada yada. And I think that whole film is sort of about like realizing that you do have this great strength, and so does everyone. Like, I think it's a pretty, I would say, like, inclusive film that's like kind of saying everyone has a superhero within them. Everyone has like an inner strength, and it's just about like, believing that you do have that and that you could find that. And I think that's sort of cool in this landscape of like superhero movies that dominates the world right now, but often feels very like inaccessible. That's why I love Spider-Verse. Like, I think Spider-Verse does the same thing. It's a movie about how like everyone has a superhero within them. Everyone can be a superhero, and I just think that's lovely. I think Glass does the same thing, and it's it feels like Shyamalan, he coming off the success of The Visit, coming off the success of Split, being like, I can be a little more Shyamalan-y. I could go back to my Shyamalan way, and it rules. It rules. I wanted to rewatch it again, but I didn't. But I will, because I'm excited to see it again. I've only seen it the one time, and I loved it. But you said it in a way where you sounded like you didn't like it, so I want to hear what you think.
I don't know. I think it was... I think we got self-conscious writer Shyamalan in it. I do like its message and its thematics, and that's also what's fun about Shyamalan movies. Like, it can do good stuff and then also do some really weird stuff that doesn't quite work. But yeah, I didn't dislike it. I thought it was very visual. Its visual language, its game was like on point, and it was doing some really cool stuff. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't connect with it
Sure.
on its like. I feel like it just was trying to connect all these stories in a way that it wouldn't feel tacked on, but maybe if I rewatch it, if I watch all three of them together, the trilogy, maybe, I think I'd watched Unbreakable and Glass like a whole year later, and I really loved it, Unbreakable. It was like, it's but this one, yeah, I mean, I liked it, but it just, I felt like McAvoy's character didn't really fit into the movie. I felt like he was from a completely different movie, which is true because he is from a completely different movie. But
I agree.
But the way he was portrayed in Split, it's like you saw that he was a human and stuff, but then when they gave him like his superhero abilities, I don't know, there's just a disconnect for me there. Sure. I think I got a disconnect, and it wasn't. I think the way it ends works, but
you like that he.
But
does he like die in a puddle?
I think he does.
That rules. That's so funny.
I think also Samuel dies as well, and I think they all die, if I'm not mistaken. Or do they? I don't know if Mr. Glass dies. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But it's a good movie. It's cool. I feel like its showdown is kind of. It's funny because I feel like it's making really good and apt pointed critiques against superhero like media, and then I feel like its last act is very much just like how Deadpool ends, and like how all these other like satires end, where like no, we have to fight.
Right, we still have to even do the like, superhero movie thing.
Even if we're dressing the fight as a fight, and it's turning it into mythology, it still feels. I don't know if it earned that aspect of it, but I do think I do like that he went for broke and he did try to be Shyamalan full on again, and I think that's a great piece about it, you know. But yeah, I think Old is when I feel like his element of his Shyamalan failures, even when it disconnects, it works in a way where you're like, okay. And I do think I like that you mentioned it at some point that that he like his attempt to make a B movie, because oh boy, is Old a movie that's doing a lot. It's
I would say it's a B movie, and I'd put that right before the title, and I'd call this movie Bold, because that's what it is. It's bold.
It's so high conceptual. It's such a conceptual piece. But I think it works. I think it's a pretty darn good movie. You know, there's some other. It's interesting how I think there's. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on, but tell me about Old in the context that you saw it. Like, what was the trailer like? What got you to? I mean, you were gonna see it.
I would see it, no matter what. It's Shyamalan, but I think that the core, like, metaphor, like this sort of fear of growing old, watching life pass by, like, and sort of not being able to, like, you know, grasp it, and just like how we choose to kind of like, or like as we look back on our lives and think like, oh, did I live my life the right way? Did I live my life like the way I wanted to? I think all that really works in the movie, and actually made me quite emotional, like especially the moment where the couple is like just sitting on the beach together and just like accepting their fate, but you know, like accepting their death, but at least they're together, and they've kind of found that like this is the thing that actually is important to me in my life, is like this human connection, and I feel like I've lived a good life because I got to have like this great tender human connection. That sort of stuff just like appeals to me in pretty much like any movie, and it's actually sort of, you know, I think is a new wrinkle on the Shyamalan career arc. I don't think that's like a thing that he has really explored that much in his past films. Like, are we living? Have I lived my life the way I want to? Have I lived my life the right way? Have I lived my life the way that's gonna like bring me the most joy? Maybe that's, you know, a new kind of route we're gonna see him take. He is obviously in a different stage of his life now. I think he's in his 50s now, so it sort of makes sense to perhaps make sort of more reflective films, where I think, as we've talked about, his earlier films were more about like sort of crisis in the present. They're very much more like, how do I move forward? This film is a lot more of like kind of a looking backwards type film, although it still has the kids and it still has like that sort of youthful eye and like an eye towards the future. But I just really liked it. I think it's like a really great metaphor at the core of the film, and I like, you know, wrapping it in the feeling of a B movie. I think that's really appealing to me. gives it a really unique personality that I just find great, and I also think it looks great. I love the cinematography, all the weird like sweeping shots and odd like motion, and I don't know. I find it actually great. I would put it like in the top half of my Shyamalan ranking. Can we do a Shyamalan ranking at the end?
I think we should. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good movie. I liked it. It was. I feel like it could have been very schlocky, but I do like how it did engage with like our humanity, even though it did have plenty of schlock in it.
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
lots of schlock.
The baby. What's funny about that is most movies, like, I don't know, would make it even more schlocky, but then there was this like very sad and intense moment of them then finding out their kid like passed.
Yeah, it's actually heartbreaking.
But it is such a disturbing image to see, like, previously like a 6-year-old that at like 15 minutes earlier was like giving birth, and then you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then like I feel like it grounded itself in its schlock, which is rare you see like schlocky stuff do. And maybe it was even schlock then. I don't know. I think the things I disliked least about it was its plot, like the hotel, the resort stuff. But like almost like how you say if the ending of Unbreakable is when he realizes he's a superhero, the same for this is like if it ended after they tried to escape, or if they did escape or whatever, I think it would have been fine. But then you get like 15 minutes of like this like evil organization, which is cool.
I like the target of critique there. I mean, I'm fine with it, but it does like it's the thing we're talking about with like Hereditary and Squid Game as well, with like you don't need to explain everything away. The metaphor is already strong, and even like just seeing these like people observing them from afar, maybe we can get a little more hints at what they're doing. But like I don't need a whole explanation, because then it just makes it like, well, okay, cool.
I do like that he responds to his work. So, like Lady in the Water, instead of him being the dude who saves the world, he's this evil like driver and old, where he's just like, yeah, they died.
Yeah,
and like watching it all from afar.
Because you could read that as like a he is like the filmmaker observing them and kind of I don't know. There's something in there. I haven't. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something in there like tying him as the film, the observer with the camera.
Yeah, the twisted voyeur or something. Very, very Hitchcockian.
True.
But which is something we didn't really get to touch on. But yeah, his visual language when he's on point is very Hitchcockian. Or not even Hitchcockian, because he's in his own realm. I think even he made films that outdid some of what Hitchcock. Whatever. Well, I'm not going to get into a comparison.
Yeah, he's better than Hitchcock. Say it.
Yeah, I said it right here. M. Night. But yeah, I think. Is there any last words? Any last thematic Shyamalan tie-ups you want to do?
No, I think. I think it is interesting now. Like, it does feel like he's going to be in this sort of new state. Well, we'll see. I mean, I haven't watched the show that he created, Servant. Mm-hmm. I never watched that. It's supposed to be good. I don't know how that necessarily fits in the kind of like thematic read of all of his work. But yeah, it is kind of cool that it's like old feels like perhaps the moving to a new phase where sort of there's more of a reflective looking back element to the work, but we'll see. I don't want to go in with sort of any expectations of anything he's going to do in the future. I'm just excited to see whatever he does. He's an artist that like we've said, doesn't always make great work, but that's what makes him really interesting to me. I don't think that all great artists have to always make great work, but I think there's usually like, there's even the stuff that doesn't work, there's always something fascinating about it. So I'm fascinated in anything he does. I'm fascinated in him as an artist. And And I also think he's made some terrific films, some of my favorite movies, as well as some of my least favorite movies. And that's what makes him so fascinating. And I love him, and he's great. And do you have final thoughts before we do the rankings?
No. I think, yeah. I just think he's a misunderstood filmmaker who is very compelling and thoughtful in ways that I think is very easy to just purposely not want to engage with, or just like whatever, not see it for what he does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I'm excited to see what he does. I don't know if he'll ever try and be as ambitious as he was when he first started off. I hope he tries to, but I think he realizes that if he keeps trying to tempt fate, he might not be able to make another movie again. So I think he's trying to play within a ballpark that he knows he can succeed at, as opposed to something that doesn't. But
did he self-finance Old? Do you know if he? I can't recall.
I think he did. I thought I heard in an interview he had, which is even more wild.
Yeah, that's wild.
So I say good luck, and yeah, I don't know. But let's
M. Night Shyamalan, if you're listening to this, good luck. We love you. We want you to keep making films, and don't worry if they suck. We'll still love them.
Yes, I support. I 100% endorse Adam's message for sucky films, or not sucky film, but go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want him to just I want him to make an actual drama or something. Or I feel like he can do like a, I don't know, August Osage County, some sort of that playwright bullshit.
That'd be awesome.
You know, I feel like he could kill it at that. He's so good at writing characters, even when they're like very like broad. He's still I don't know, but
they're still memorable.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like so much great performances. But let's get to some rankings, Adam.
Okay.
Do you want to do all 17? I think it's 17. Or do you want to?
I think
do you want to just do top 5?
I think it's 14.
Is it?
I got
14?
my list.
Okay,
I got my list. I wrote it out.
Awesome.
Do you want to go 14, first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, I'll start from the bottom. I'd say 14 is After Earth. 13, The Happening. 12, The Last Airbender. Those are the only 3 that I would say I like. Not that there aren't positive things or interesting things, but I would say I just like don't enjoy the time I spend with those movies. And then 11, 10, and 9 are all films that I think are fine. Wide Awake, 11, Praying with Anger, 10, and Split I would go as my 9th. All films that there's interesting things in there, especially like if you draw them as you look at them in the context of his entire career, but they're not films that I love. 8, I would say The Visit, which is just sort of a midpoint. It's pretty good. And then all the films up I would say I like a lot. 7, Glass. 6, Old. This is the most bold ranking, but 5, Lady in the Water. And I've acknowledged all the, I know why other people wouldn't like it. I really enjoy it. 4, Signs. And but all those films I think are great. And then these 3 are the 3 that I would say to me pretty stone cold masterpieces. It's hard to go 3 and 2. Unbreakable, I'd go 3, and The Village would be 2. But those 2 are pretty interchangeable. And then The Sixth Sense, I'd go number 1. But on any day, I could say The Village or Unbreakable are also, my favorite. Those 3 are all masterpieces in my mind.
Awesome. I guess for me, let's see. I'm gonna pull up the list.
Yes, I'm excited. I love lists.
I would say, I would say The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
I'm going to do probably like groupings, like of threes, because I don't really have super strong feelings about all of them. But I think probably similar to yours, your bottom three would be Last Airbender, Avatar, and Happening.
Yeah.
And then maybe Wide Awake, Praying with Anger, and The Visit, which would be 6. So then now we're at 8, I think.
Yeah.
And then from there, Split, Glass. I think we're probably going to have very similar ones. Split, Glass. Old, I guess, even though I like Old a lot.
Yeah, I get it.
Lady in the Water. So let's see, what would I be at? That's like, I think 5 now? Or 4, I think. Let's see, Lady in the Water.
You still got like the big 4.
Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, Signs, and then The Village.
Wow.
Or, actually, I might put Signs at I don't know. It probably just depends on my mood that day.
Yeah,
I think they're both really, for me as a kid, it just those ones stuck with me.
Yeah.
Very rarely, and I think Sixth Sense is incredible, but I think on a personal level, those ones resonate more than. That's not true. I don't know. Those top 3 can all kind of go in and out on any different day. Yeah,
I love it. I feel like I want to be bold and not put the Sixth Sense as my number 1 and put The Village, but the Adrian Brody character just kills it in The Village. It's so bad. It does. It's so bad. It's so ableist. Like, it's terrible, and it just like ruins what otherwise is like a perfect movie to me.
I agree. Yeah, maybe then I actually think Village might go. Well,
third. I
forget about that character, but when I actively think about it, I'm like, I don't think about that character.
Yeah, I just try to forget it. I'm like, make a cut of the movie without that character, and it's perfect.
But yeah, I think the Sixth Sense is great, and Signs is, I don't know. I think if I think that's maybe the reason why I connect to that is like as a storyteller.
Yeah.
That story is like, I can easily see myself writing something along those lines. Maybe not that style, but so I think I'm just like that's like. I feel like Shyamalan reminds me a lot of Cassavetes. That's all I'm gonna say. It's just he very much loves writing. That'd be a fun one because he changes a lot throughout, and then he comes back, and then he doesn't change a lot. But Bookkeeper is it's a weird movie. I mean, I guess maybe he doesn't change at all. He kind of just makes not the same movie, but in the same style. These very like intimate portraits of people.
I haven't seen a lot of them,
fun.
So it would be interesting.
I think it's like 7 or 8, so it wouldn't be too hard. This one, I didn't realize how hard we were. I actually was gonna say we should have cut it in half. But I could still cut it in half.
You could still cut it in half. This is like 2.5 hours. That's a good two-parter. Or just a great epic first episode.
Yeah, a 3-hour epic.
I know. I gotta do something at 2:00, which is in 1 minute, and I was like, oh yeah, we'll be done long before then.
Okay, well, Adam, if you wouldn't mind just letting people know where they could find your work and who you are.
Yeah. And, go to follow at Insomniac Fest on Instagram, or Insomniac_Fest on Twitter, or go to insomniacfestival.com, and you can learn more about us and what we do. And we're based in Toronto, but we also we're trying to do more online stuff and yeah, I mean, I don't know what the future's going to hold for Insomniac, but I can assure you there's going to be some very cool stuff we're going to do. So, follow us and you'll learn more. I guess you could also follow me. It's just my name, but I don't really go on Instagram because I'm, really cool. I like to brag about it. I got a 15-minute timer on my phone, so I can only go on for 15 minutes a day. It's pretty cool. But my name is Adam Bovoletis, Bovoletis. So you can follow me if you want to.
Awesome.
And listen
Thank
to
you, Adam,
episodes of Is It Whack? We're on a hiatus right now, but we'll be back at some point. David was on an episode, one of the best episodes. We did Digimon the movie. So check that one out, and then check out all of them. And then if you send us a message and encourage us to come back, we'll be more likely to come back.
Okay, whoever hears this, please do write a message after checking out Is It Whack, and do check out the Village episode. Great episode.
It was great.
I'm gonna let you get off, Adam, because it sounds like you have to get going. But thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so
was
much.
Fun to. Yeah, it was fun. Very daunting. Next time I'll keep in mind how much. Well,
I'd already seen them all, so it was good. It was, I didn't have to like. It was more daunting for you, I guess, because there was more that you said you hadn't seen. But yeah, I was like, I go through the ones that I really want to watch again. I feel like I had a good memory of most of them, although some of those ones in the middle I probably could have stood to watch again. I probably would have had some better takes, but hey. We'll say the next one we do, it's gonna be I don't know yet. Something good.
We'll be back soon with something special. We'll find something.
Hell yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Have a good day. We'll talk soon. We'll talk about details later. I can message you about it.
Sounds good. Bye, awesome. Listeners.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to OEUVRE, otherwise known as Somethingography, the internet's funniest artist reflection podcast. Join us next week, where we'll be discussing Heart Crane with Colette, a great person, and let's talk about some poetry. Have a great day, and thank you again for listening. Goodbye.